So in the previous video, we set up the process here of creating this really cool thing here called the reverse foot, which has a lot going on. However, it also kind of sucks at the same time because what you might have noticed if you followed along with that recording and then came in here and switched to your IK or FK system, your foot no longer works. Why is that? It's because we made those IK joints constrained. Take over here. All right. So what we need to do is we need to set up a little bit of an FK foot. Now, how do we set up an FK foot? It's really not that creative. We're just going to create literally an FK system here that controls the foot. If you want to, you can create a more extensive series of pivots. But let's go ahead and just get in here and get this set. I'm going to grab this foot control here and just hit Control D and Shift D. And we'll just set up a very basic FK system here for this foot. I'm going to snap this to the ankle. And even though I'm going to, actually, I guess this is technically going to control the foot, not the ankle. And let me think if I actually want to use this control or not. I think I don't. We're just going to use basic curves. So let's go ahead and create some curves here. NURBS primitive, we'll go with a circle here. And I'll just go ahead and kind of duplicate these out. I'll start with the first one here going on the ankle. So I'm going to use V to snap to vertex here. Rotate that forward 90 degrees. And then let's go ahead and shape it a little bit here. My character has some pretty basic looking feet, so I'll go ahead and just kind of shape this a bit here to maybe match the ball of the foot. And one thing I might do is maybe come in here and flatten this. I don't know if I really want to do that, but something like that might look kind of good, just to kind of indicate the bottom of the foot here. So something kind of like that. And the ball and toe, they're kind of close together here. So I do need to kind of determine how I want this to go. Do I actually want to use that foot control? It might be more visually, aesthetic to kind of see it here bending this, even though this is what bends it. And you just have to kind of give some thought to that. I don't really know what I want to do here. I think maybe just something like this is fine. We'll go ahead and freeze transforms on this. And then I'll just want to get this to the other side. All right, just duplicate that across, freeze transforms, and then get something here for the toe. So I'll go ahead and just snap this, rotate this 90. And, take a bit more time than I'm taking to think about what you want the shape to be. I'm just trying to get something in here quickly so we can keep things rolling here. And I think what I'll do with this one is just kind of flatten the top and flatten the bottom a little bit. So that way it's a little bit more symbolic of this shape. And these things aren't interfering quite as much with each other. And remember, usability is a huge factor of rigs, so you want to make sure these are easy for the animator to use and to understand. So we'll work on that a little bit here. All right, so let's go ahead and just freeze transforms on both of these, and let me go ahead and duplicate this across. And for this one, I actually need a mirror. So I'm going to scale X -1, freeze transforms. And I should probably do the same with the back one here, scale X -1 and freeze transforms. And actually, let me double check that. Is this one really digging into the side of this? Because it kind of is. So let's just go ahead and make sure that this one here is coming out far enough that we're not digging into our rig here, our geometry. And since I shaped that one, let's go ahead and just delete the other one and reduplicate. So always take some time, getting these controls to look right. Let's scale X -1 to make sure that's mirrored, and then freeze transforms. And that should give us what we're looking for. Okay, so we can go ahead and name this. This is going to be my L FK ball. This is going to be my L FK toe. And this will be the same on the other side. So I'll just go ahead and copy this and make this my R FK ball. And this will be my R IK toe. Now, just like we've done before, we're going to repeat the process here of creating a FK system. So let's review the process of that. I'm going to pull up my hypergraph hierarchy here. You can see this is getting pretty busy. We're going to need to take some time consolidating all of this. But I'm going to Control G to create a null. What I'm then going to do is find the FK joint here. I know the IK is still visible, so find that FK joint. We're going to shift select that null, we're going to constrain parent, make sure maintain offset is off, hit apply so we can get that constraint. We'll parent the curve underneath, and then we'll freeze its transforms. And then we'll bring it back onto that joint to control it and just do a constrained parent. And what that will do now is it will allow this to control that joint. But remember, we're going to have to set up our hierarchy in our FK system again. So let's control G. Let's take this joint here, make sure it's the FK, take the null, do a constrained parents, delete the parent constraints, take the toe control, parent it underneath, freeze the transform, and then take that back into that toe joint and constrain parent. We can then take the null to curve. So we're going to take the toes null to the curve of the ball. And then we're going to take the null of the ball to the curve of the ankle and P to parent. So you're going to see that's going to be nested right into that original rig. So now what we have going is this. This now controls that, and this controls this. But remember, it's only partially controlling it because we need to integrate this into our IK-FK switch. So if you're adding more things like we've done, what we need to do now is find those constraints and drive this here. So let's go ahead and come into our set driven key. Let's go into our key, set driven key, set. Let's load this as our driver. And this is going to be our L IK-FK switch. And what we're going to need to find is going to be the constraints for these guys. So we can find this control and we can hunt down these constraints. So if we go ahead and take a look at this, you'll see this is going to be my L here. It's going to have an IK ball joint and an FK ball joint. So I'm going to look for those. Here's the ball for the FK. So this is my FK ball. If we go ahead and take a look at this, that's the FK IK joint. So you'll see this has both of them on there. So let's go ahead and load that as the driven. This will allow us to access the weight for these. And what we can do is set this to 0 and set that to 1 and click key. And what that should do now is it should make it so this is going to follow with that. Now, something I would encourage you to do is don't switch this. Let's go ahead and take this now, do our L to IK, and while we're here, do this switch. Because what you're going to notice is if I go ahead and try and use the foot roll here, we might run into some issues where that joint's not following. So what we could do is just go ahead and flip-flop these with this one, 1 and 0. So it switches back to the IK, and we can click key. So what that will do now is when this is moving, you'll see that joint should move with it. But when we switch back, the FK won't. Now, you might be thinking, wait, it's not. That's because we need to do this for the toe joint as well. So let's go ahead and switch this back to IK because it's a little bit easier for us to see, or an FK, or at least easier to start with. Let's find that toe joint, and you'll see it's right here, and this is going to be the one for that one. We're going to load this as a driven and just select both of these. We'll set the IK to 0 and the FK to 1 and click key. What we should see is this toe is fully following the FK system now. And if we go ahead and switch to the IK system, that toe is going to be up in the air. So what we can do now with the IK switch is just switch this to 0 and 1 and key. And now that toe is going to be fully following the IK system. And now you'll see my IK-FK switch is officially done because we needed to get the feet controls in here first. All right, but that is going to be the process there of setting up our FK leg so that it will function with our IK-FK switch, and we can switch between these freely and actually be able to control the individual feet controls. Now, you might be thinking, hey, what about the reverse foot? Do we do that for the FK? And the answer is you can. You can set up pivot controls for these. If you guys did the minecart project, you guys could come in here and, on top of these, my ball control, I could very easily hit Control G. I could branch this off into a group and boot its pivot. And you can see I could set up a control that actually controls the pivot of this location. Now, I'm not going to do that because generally with FK, you don't need to worry about that so much. It's usually IK that we're worried about it a bit more. With FK, you can kind of deliberately move these things exactly how you like. But if you did want to add additional controls, you can. Now, what I'm going to do is just kind of finish off this guy over here. I think we got everything set up except for the IKFK switch. Oh, actually, no, we need to set up the whole thing. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Just kind of repeat the process start to finish, and then we'll be done with our leg systems. All right, so just Control G. We'll go ahead and just come in here, make sure we're grabbing that FK joint. I know there's a lot going on there. As a matter of fact, it looks like I have the IK system turned on that one. Let's go ahead and switch back to FK on it. That way we can see this a bit better. And then we can just take the joints, shift select the null, do that constrain parent with maintain offset on, or off rather. Go ahead and delete that null, parent the curve underneath, and freeze transforms. And then I'll just repeat that process for the other side, null to joint, constrain parent, delete that, parent this underneath, freeze transform. Bring these back into here to constrain to the FK joint. Make sure it's the FK, constrain parent. Do the same thing here, constrain parent. And then rebuild hierarchy. Null to curve and null to curve. All right. Always test functionality, even if you think you got it right. Looks good. And let's go ahead and hunt these down now. So let's go ahead and once again load this as the driver. This time we're going to go with the right leg, and then we can hunt these guys down here by selecting them here, hitting the F key, and just finding that constraint that goes to them. In this case, I know it's going to be both of these, so I'll just load them both in. We'll load these as the driven, and we can start by keyframing these. We have to do them individually, but this will put them in the system here. We're going to start with FK. All right, so we're going to set our IK to 0, select both attributes and key, select our IK to 0, select both attributes and key, and then we'll just go and flip that real quick. So we'll go ahead and switch this from our FK to our IK. Go ahead and switch this to 1 and 0 and hit key. Oh, make sure we highlight our attributes, important step. Switch this from 1 and 0 and then hit key. And then just double check that this system's working. All right, so we'll go ahead and lift the leg here. That looks good. And then we can go ahead and take a look at the process here of the IKFK switch on this leg. And if all is good, these guys should be moving together. All right, so at this point, I hope you guys feel pretty accomplished because what we have done is we've gone and finished our leg system. So one of the really big aspects of the rig, the IKFK legs, the reverse foot, all in place and functioning. The last things we have left to do is going to be to work our way up to the arm and then, of course, do some rig cleanup here. But hopefully this gives you a better idea about how you can kind of go back and retroactively affect controls. It doesn't always have to be a linear process, but it's also important to understand that what we do downstream can affect what's upstream and vice versa. So in the case of the reverse foot, we needed to make the IK control those joints. By making those IK control those joints, they no longer worked in the FK system, which meant we needed to come out and give the FK some sort of an interface, especially if they're not going to be shared. Now, at this stage, we are done with the IK leg rigs. We are done with the FK leg rigs. The only thing we have left to do on them is a little bit of cleanup. So if we wanted to start cleaning things up a little bit here, I could take my 2 IK leg rigs, I could Control G these and just make this my IK legs. And as you might have guessed, this IK leg group is just going to go underneath here. It's going to go under this placement control. So we can just go ahead and take that IK leg and parent it underneath here. And you'll see this cleans up this area quite a bit. We can do the same thing with the FK legs. We can take both our FK legs here, Control G. We can just make these our FK legs. And then we can parent these underneath here. And we can look for anything that we don't need. There's a floating group I can get rid of. And then, of course, this is our hip locator here for locating the hip. I can just go ahead and add that into my locator group. And you'll see that our hierarchies are kind of being consolidated a little bit better. All right, so that's going to finish off the legs for us by doing our FK feet. Let's go ahead and save this out and work our way up into the arms next. So we're going to kind of finish things off strong here, get our clavicle in place, and then our IK, FK arms and our fingers, and have a complete rig. So join me in the next one for starting in on the FK arm system.